Hello and welcome back to another episode of Vikings Happy Hour, sponsored by Lake Monster Brewing, and that's Badass Wood Art. Remember to use promo code CT Pocket for 20% off any one item at that'sbadasswoodart.com. And also, if you're here, click like, click subscribe, help us boost our subscriber numbers. Our goal is 3,000 by the NFL draft, and we can get there with your help. And we're also doing a giveaway. If we get to 3,000, that's badass wood art. We'll actually give out a piece of wood art. It says SKOL. I don't have the picture on me, but we posted it on our YouTube page. You can find it there, as well as any other social media. So we're here to break down our top wide receivers headed into the NFL draft. Yeah, we can just dive right into it. We all have a number 5 to 1, so we'll start at 5 and move up to 1. And Myles, I've talked with Ryan pre-show about what his list was, but who's your fifth wide receiver headed into this NFL draft? And I think we all kind of are gearing our thoughts more towards how they'd fit for the Vikings and not just in general. But yeah, let's start with you.
Okay. Well, I try to not do that just because I want to, obviously there's certain fits and things like that. But number 5 for me would be Josh Downs from North Carolina.
Okay.
A big fan of his game. He's on the smaller side, 5'9", 170, but ran a good 40. I think he ended up running a high 4.4. I think it was a 4.48. Really explosive. I view him as kind of a guy that has high slot upside. And with where the league is trending and going, a guy like him could really feast in the slot and be a high volume player at the next level. And so that's kind of how I viewed him.
Yeah.
I don't see as much outside ability. Not that he can't do it. I think he can do it. But I think it's more around the fact that, yeah, she's excited about it too. It's not that I don't think he could be an outside receiver. I just think he'd be best utilized as a slot receiver.
Yeah, and your concern, right, is that he can't beat press coverage either, right?
Well, there's not a lot of evidence to say that he can. It's hard. I don't like to knock a guy if I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to sit here and say that he can't. But it's something I just don't know.
For sure. Ryan, who is your number 5 receiver?
Yeah, maybe it's somewhat controversial, but I'm going to go with Quentin Johnson is my number 5 receiver. I know consensus-wise, he's like the top 1, 2, 3, somewhere in that realm. I've watched a lot of Quentin Johnson just over the last couple seasons over at TCU because obviously I watch a lot of Big 12 football and a lot of skills. I think he can provide a lot of dynamic ability to a team. I do still have some questions around just ability to run crisp and solid routes, and he's had moments where he just really dominates and then just moments where he disappears in games. And granted, that might be just scheme, that might be Max Duggan not giving him the ball, whatever it might be. I mean, there's a lot of reasons for that, but for some reason, when I watch the game, there's just like an it factor that's missing for me. And granted, I love his game, and if he ended up becoming a Minnesota Viking, I'd be very happy with that decision. Yeah. I just have him ranked 5th for my own personal rankings.
I think that's fair. My 5th is somebody that Ryan is really, really going to enjoy, and it's kind of a surprise. But I'm going to put Marvin Mims as my 5th wide receiver in this draft class, only because I feel like he would fit really well with Justin Jefferson. He's an explosive guy. He can clearly win downfield. He's got the run after the catch ability that we know that Kevin O'Connell loves in his offense. But also, I think he just kind of plays bigger than his size. I don't know. I like the way he brings that motor to the wide receiver position, and I think that he's not getting talked about enough, and that's obviously just fan speculation and stuff. But I think he's going to go a lot higher than people think. So we'll loop back now. I'll start with number 4 here. My number 4 is Quentin Johnston. Again, kind of the same critiques that Ryan had. I do think he'd fit well in Minnesota. I don't think he's as great as everybody thinks he is. He doesn't look as, I'm trying to think of the correct word for him. He just doesn't look as polished as maybe I want him to be. I know he's a bigger receiver, he's physical, but for me, it's just I don't see the wide receiver one potential that everyone else kind of talks about. But I do think he would be he's still going to be a good receiver. I just don't see elite in at the next level. So Ryan, who is your number 4?
Obviously, I got to go with my boy Marvin Mims.
God.
Yeah, I mean, again, everything you had mentioned, just elite separation ability, pretty good route runner. My questions with him is, can he beat man coverage or press coverage? Can he beat press coverage on a consistent basis? Because he had a lot of free releases coming out of the Big 12 and just the way that those defenses play football. And then he had some concentration drops in like easy scenarios. So a lot of people look at Marvin Mims highlights and you're going to see like these fantastic one-handed grabs or crazy sideline catches while getting just like destroyed. The most notable one is his huge comeback catch against Texas 2 years ago, where he got the knee down and the elbow down right in the corner, front corner of the end zone. Like, so he makes the dynamic catches, but he does miss some of those easier ones. But from a separation ability, from him stacking his receivers extremely well, and again, that separation really in strong hands for the most part really get me excited. And again, to your point, when we're looking at it from a Vikings perspective, Justin Jefferson would welcome a guy with 4.38 speed, right?
Yeah.
And he's one of the faster receivers that's going to be in the draft, especially in these top guys. So it gets me really excited. I would love for him to be on the Minnesota Vikings.
He just wants a Sooner on this team so bad. Myles, who's your number 4?
My number 4 is Quentin Johnson. I think.
Hey, we're all kind of down on him.
Yeah, it's hard to say down. I have him as like this draft class in itself. I only have 2 like day one receivers. I think Quentin Johnson's a day 2 receiver, but I think the height, weight, speed, ability is there, and so I can understand why everybody's excited. While people are excited about him, and the NFL probably will bet on him because of the traits he does have. So I like his game from that height, weight, speed perspective, and some of the stuff he was able to do it at TCU. But yeah, I have questions about some of the nuance and some of the other understandings of the game. But I have a hard time always questioning players, the offenses they come from.
Yeah.
My questions usually come more in like if the guy is only lining up at one spot in an offense all the time at wide receiver, are they moving around? What's their route tree look like?
Sure.
Easy releases and that stuff. That's what teams should be doing for their players. So it's hard.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So does your opinion change though? Because for me personally, when I think about like the Tennessee wide receivers, Hyatt and Tillman, I'm not touching those guys because the offensive, like the scheme that they came from, especially Hyatt. I know he's got elite level speed, but he was always like manufactured touches, free releases, and so that stuff kind of concerns me. Do you feel the same way about that?
Well, see, I try to look at it from more of a trait standpoint. Like, what traits do they have? What abilities do they have that I see on tape? It's hard. It can be harder to understand how it translates to the next level because sometimes the sample size might be small, and you're asking these guys to do some of these things that they might not have done in college, and now do it against the best athletes in the game. So, and my daughter disagrees with me. But
real quick, Myles. This is how I know you're a great father. Listen to your child just love you. Just daddy. Like, kudos to you because you must be doing something right if she just wants dad.
Thanks, man. I like to think so.
Flow us into your wide receiver 3, Myles.
Yeah. So my wide receiver 3. So this is the one I've kind of gone back and forth with, but I'm just gonna stick with it. Zay Flowers. I'm a huge Zay Flowers fan. I loved him out of Boston College. I think he's got. Like,
she's hyped. She is hyped for Zay Flowers.
Yeah, she is. She told me I should add him higher. No, so for me, Zay Flowers really gives me what some people think Josh Downs is that true inside-out ability.
Yeah.
I love his downfield speed. I love his route running ability, and I love the dog in him. And I know that's like such a like buzzword that people have been using lately is like they got that dog in him, but Zay Flowers has that, especially as a 5'9" and change type of receiver. he definitely likes to mix it up. He's not afraid to go across the middle, get hit, and get contact. And so I love that type of receiver, that type of mentality. Plus, when I watch him, I just see a guy that he commands attention. And I don't think that's easy to do, especially at a smaller school like Boston College or against some of the competition. You know, he has to go against Clemson, North Carolina, all these teams that have good defenses. And so maybe North Carolina not as much as last year, but, you know, of recent. And so I just really like his nuance and the ability, the inside and out game that he has. And I think at the next level, I have him as like, we talk Vikings, if the Vikings took him at 23, I might think it's a reach, but it's not something that I think is like out of question or something that I'd be like upset about. Yeah. I think he has that like back end round 1, very early round 2 type of, and I'm hearing that maybe he goes even earlier than that. So, but for me, I have him as like an early day 2 guy.
Ryan, are you on the same train here as number 3 of your Zay Flowers?
No, actually, no. I have Zay Flowers actually higher, so I'll leave that as a mystery of which one he is. And real quick, you mentioned feistiness, right? The dog in him. I love that too. And I'm going to do just a quick backtrack to my number 4, Marvin Mims. One other thing that is underrated that I love about him is his ability and willingness to be a blocker, which is very important in this scheme. And he loves to get out there and compete as a smaller guy. Going to my number 3, and this is actually, that's one thing that's a knock on number 3, but my number 3 is Jordan Addison. I think Jordan Addison is just such a nuanced route runner and effective at getting open. He can really stack his corners and make them not know which way he's going and create a lot of opportunities for himself to get open. Where he lacks and why he's not higher on my list is because he doesn't have that kind of track level, next level speed. He can get going, he can get moving, but on tape, you look at a guy like Zay Flowers, you look at a guy
Myles
like Marvin
disagrees.
Mims, they really separate. Jordan Addison can separate and he can get open, but he's not really pulling away from receivers as much or from DBs as much as I'd like him to. But like, again, still love his game. I would be ecstatic for him. I think who was there's recently somebody who put out a mock draft, us taking him at, I think it's Brad Spielberger. He just put out his first mock draft with us taking Jordan Addison, and I gave him a good old kudos for that because I would be ecstatic for him to be on this team.
I'll say mine, and then Myles, I'm going to let you chime in here because I know you have a comment. So my wide receiver 3 is also Zay Flowers. It's very tempting to move him up a little bit higher just because I think he would, of the receivers in this class, I think he'd fit the Vikings the best. And one thing that Myles, obviously you mentioned a lot of the traits that Zay Flowers have, but he's got really good ball tracking skills, like deep down the field. And that's so difficult to do just in general. And I feel like people don't talk about it enough. Yeah, he's a deep field threat because he's a burner. He's got speed, but he can haul in all of those passes, contested or not. And yeah, he's if we walked away with him on day 1, I'd be thrilled. And yes, moving to number 2 here, Jordan Addison. I think we're kind of maybe flipping those 2 interchangeably. People are kind of knocking Jordan Addison because he didn't test too well at the combine. I don't care too much about that. I know what I'm going to get with him. He's a sure wide receiver, a sure-handed wide receiver. Good nuance and suddenness to his route running. Very, quick, short area quickness. And so I think he would fit well with the Vikings as well. I don't think he's going to be a great receiver, but he'll be a good one for sure. So, but what were you smirking about when Ryan was talking about Jordan Addison?
Well, the worry about the speed part for me, I guess, mainly because
it's not a worry. It's not a worry. It's just that when with my number 2 guy, he has that breakaway speed. That was literally the differentiator between those 2.
I don't disagree with that part of it. But I think running a sub 4.5 for Addison is really good for me.
Yeah.
And because I comped Jordan Addison to Deontay Johnson. That's who I see when I watch him. I know some people say Calvin Ridley, but I see a little bit more of Deontay Johnson just because of he doesn't have the downfield. I think Calvin Ridley is more of a true 3-step receiver, 3-level receiver. Whereas hold on, bud. I think Jordan Addison is probably more of that like short intermediate. And I'm not saying he can't be a downfield threat, but he definitely is more of that short to intermediate. Yeah, do you not agree? Don't chew on that. So that, I guess that's my true one difference. But I just think his route running and his nuance and subtle ability to get separation is, besides JSN, which I know we're all going to talk about, I just think it's just like it's a step above Zay Flowers for me.
That's
fair. But I think as like who I like more, I like Zay Flowers more, but I just think from like the traits and some perspective and who I watch, I just see Jordan Addison kind of fitting in the NFL because of some of those traits easier.
Okay. Yeah, and I agree. Like I said, he's a phenomenal player, and he's basically a sure bet. He is of these receivers, he's probably the second biggest sure bet.
Yep.
The second safest. So
with the number 2, then Ryan, did you just have it interchangeable?
I did. Yep. So okay. Zay Flowers is mine. One of the other things that hasn't been said about him that I'll just mention is his big playability, in not giving up on a play. Like you watch him, and I almost see a little Percy Harvin in him. Like I know that they're very different players, but I almost see a little bit of that. Like
it's the size, though.
Contact balance. Yeah, probably a little bit of that. But like if you watch some of the tape, like his contact balance, he doesn't go down at first hit every time. Like a Jordan Addison would, right? And that, again, that's part of why I have him edged just a little higher, is because not only can he get open, not only is he pretty fast. I think it was like a 4.45, 4.43, something like that.
4.4, yeah. It was like right in line with like Stephon Diggs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then he has the ability to make some acrobatic catches, and then you add that contact balance.
4.42, my bad.
4.42, yeah. So he's a burner, and then you add in just that contact balance and ability to kind of even take like reverses and make something out of it more effectively as like almost like a running back, right? So because he has that contact balance that some of these running backs would have. So I like Zay Flowers a lot. I actually almost put him at 1. Ooh. just because of that, honestly, because he does everything so well. Yeah, and honestly, all 3 of these guys, because we're all going to talk Jackson Smith and Jigba, so all 3 of these guys are awesome, and the difference for me between those 3 are like minuscule. They're minuscule. So who wants to talk Jackson Smith and Jigba first?
Well, I think we can give the wide receiver expert Myles Gorham the floor here and talk about all of our number 1 wide receiver.
Yeah, I think consensus pretty much has Jackson Smith and Jigba as the number 1 wide receiver in the draft. And I think it's pretty. Hold on, bud. You got to turn this down. Your mini 4 show is loud. I just think I think from like everything he can do. Hold on, bud. Hold on. Hey, hold on. Hey, why don't you go ahead, Ryan?
Sure, sounds good. So for everyone listening, Jackson Smith and Jigba, a phenomenal player. He has that ability to really get open on a whim. So if you look at some of the testing scores, it really validates his game super, super well. He's not a burner by any means. I think he ended up running like a 4.52, 4.53, something like that. But what he does super well is he's shifty. He has the ability to get in and out of breaks quickly and create separation on a dime. So again, some of the elite like 3-cone and separation agility drills at the combine, he blew everyone out of the water on that. And he has that ability to just get the separation, very sure hands. And again, another guy that has that ability to take on a hit, bounce off of it, and keep going and create additional yards. He's not going to do that all the time, but he's shown on tape to be able to do that. He's played against some really good competition too. Obviously, Big Ten isn't full of a ton of elite DBs by any means, but he played well in the bowl game 2 years ago and really created, like, cemented a legacy for himself purely just on that game alone. Gave him a first round draft pick status, right? And you got to remember, in that game, he didn't have Olave or Garrett Wilson, but there's a lot of people in that DB room who say Jackson Smith-Njigba is the best of those three. And we watch Garrett Wilson contend for Offensive Rookie of the Year. Or no, he won it, right? Yeah, he won it. And then Chris Olave was definitely in conversation for that. I mean, he's a very good receiver for the New Orleans Saints. So we're talking a really good receiver here. I'm really excited about the prospect of him. I hope he can fall to us, even though it's not the skill set that I'm necessarily looking for out of the receiver opposite Justin Jefferson. It would be such a value add to this team and provide us a big uplift in the passing game.
I
Myles,
think, I think we talked about the fit with JJ. I think he'd be a perfect complement to JJ because they both just get open and win. And that's all I care about. I don't think we need to have like the perfect player. I think it's just get good receivers that can go with him. But I understand like the similarities between the two guys, especially when you run in the slot, like what they can do in option routes and things. But the one thing that I love about Jackson Smith-Njigba is the fact that he knows how to win on the inside and knows how to like find soft zones and coverage. He knows how to beat, and he's twitchy. His agility numbers, just you see it all over his tape. And the testing that came out of it, you just see it all over his tape, and that like guys can't stick with him, especially safeties and linebackers and nickel corners have a hard time as well. And he's big enough too that like you said, he could take some of the hits. But like I kind of likened him to Tyler Boyd, but like a little bit more of a souped up Tyler Boyd coming out of Pitt. I was a huge Tyler Boyd fan coming out of Pitt when he was coming out of college, but I think Jackson Smith-Njigba has a little bit more of the outside ability as well. I don't think he's Justin Jefferson. I don't think he can win on the outside the same way JJ can, but I think he has the ability to win the outside because I just think he's that good of a route runner and the ability to get off the line of scrimmage. Maybe in like that Devontae Adams, CeeDee Lamb style, where he's probably best suited to be a slot receiver. And like you see guys like Cooper Kupp, Amon-Ra St. Brown, those guys feast and live in that. And I think Jackson Smith-Njigba can be that type of player in the NFL. That's why I have him as a wide receiver 1, because the NFL is just continuing to trend that way, where those types of guys and how they win is it's becoming more common. It used to be more of like a niche. Now it's becoming common, like common knowledge and common like traits that teams are looking for. And I just think he has that in spades. And the speed doesn't really worry me. A low 4.5 was perfect for him because you see it on tape. I don't see a low 4.4 guy on tape. I see a mid 4.4, high 4.4, like low 4.5 guy anyway. So him kind of confirming that was fine with me.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much that I can add on to that than what you guys said. He's a technician for sure, and I'm hopeful we could get him. I think he goes a lot higher than 23. But wherever he goes, I hope they can maximize his potential because he could be a great receiver in the NFL. So,
Myles, I actually comped him to your boy Keenan Allen. I think he's got Keenan Allen abilities.
I think I see that too. I think he's got more juice though than Keenan.
Yeah,
and I think but
and less injury prone.
I don't hate the comp. Stop. Says the guy that missed just the whole season. No. It's a solid comp. I've always had a hard time putting comps to Keenan just because he's a little bit more of a unicorn. In that like his downfield speed and things is just a little different. In that most guys that running a 4.6, like Keenan probably does or did in his prime, and they just don't have the same abilities to win the way Keenan does. So, but yeah, I don't hate it.
Well, that is our top 5 wide receiver rankings headed into the NFL draft, which is just a little over a month away. So we're curious to hear what you guys have to think. Drop your top 5 or top 3 or top 10, whatever, in the comments below. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, and stay tuned for more Vikings content coming from Climbing the Pocket in Vikings Happy Hour. SKOL Vikings.